members of the third gender. I am not here to bash anyone. I am not recognized, I don't recognize, and I am not moved by, nor do I give a damn about trigger words created and used by feminazis to distract and to dissuade unsuspecting people from dealing with the sorry state of family in this community, this nation, and the world. I want to let you know that words like homophobe, misogynist, gay basher, breeder, chauvinist, hater, and gender bigot, or any of the other in-house gay speak pejoratives used to incite emotion over reason, to suppress and to distract attention from a full and unhindered pursuit of the truth, I ain't bothered by it. And I don't give a damn what you call me, because you've been calling me names by the barrelful. I've been hearing it. I've been hearing it from all the people out there who are saying, even those who are not into all of that. Why are you doing that? It's not PC to talk about that anymore. Well, to automatically characterize me with any of the above labels without fully investigating the evidence that I have stumbled upon by researching all sides of this issue could only cause you to be exposed to the classic agent provocateur planted amongst us to use buzzwords and unrelated topics to incite the fears and basest emotions of the people, to deflect the light of scrutiny away from those attempting to create an open platform for the exploration of truth. We are all too familiar with these types of tactics. A classic example is to turn us one against the other, or to interject such overused phrases like anti-Semitic. As soon as you use the word anti-Semitic, any injustices that come from that direction, you meet that word and use that word to call them out on what they're about, and then you're anti-Semitic. Well, I'm calling out this whole new tidal wave of gay and lesbian onslaught on the radio, on the TV especially. Everything on TV is gay, and when I say gay, I mean the women with the strapped guns walking around now like men, the men deferring to when she gets pissed off. I'm not going for it. I don't feel comfortable when I see a woman with a gun and a man cowering when she starts talking, and he's got the same gun. And he's got to watch what he says. I'll be damned. This lecture is dedicated to the scrotum. And to help the brothers out there to find it. Most of it is going to be read, so that when you take this home, you will be doing it like we do it at the university. You will be reading. What I thought I would just read off to you, I would allow you to read, and in between, reinforce with pictures. How's that? Yes, y'all don't mind reading with me, would you? No. Good. Good. Western civilization has alienated us from archetypal dynamics that function from within the deepest fabric of our being, to the point where we can no longer access them for validation. What we know is no longer substantiated by inquiry into how we know, or why we know. As is typical of westernized thinking, we are trained not to incorporate what goes beyond cerebrosensual knowledge. Our social perception is stuck in a perpetual validation of the what? Archetypal design. And what I mean archetypal design is the universe, the cosmos, God, the Most High, placed into the fabric of creation an equilibrium of energies to bring about the continuity of life. And therefore, for us to now try to qualify or requalify, re-engineer, or somehow change and mutate that particular concept will always lead us off the beaten path, and that beaten path pretty much is the straight and narrow, and we will head to oblivion. And guess what? Nature will start all over again. Archetypal design, intuition, and instincts are no longer considered verifiable qualities of universal intelligence operating within the holomorphic consciousness of humanity today. Now, actions taken contrary to divine design are looked upon as creative expression, unique perspectives, or novel interpretations necessary for the advancement of an open society. But we are not what we understand. In point of fact, we are what allows us to understand. With the removal of the how and the why from our investigative analysis of gender, for example, the parasitic elite have effectively neutralized our inner independent observer as a factor in holistic perception. In fact, no effective monitoring of the evolution or devolution of gender consciousness is possible without a neutral consciousness to verify the idiosyncrasies of either process without bias. Now, what does that mean? It means that there has to be an independent observer outside what it is those who are in authority gives us as reality, but they do not allow us to incorporate that independent observer. The independent observer is suppressed. The independent observer is more connected to, instinctively and intuitionally, to the equilibrium of the Most High. So they have to program you past that and get you to be conditioned to think about what and not about how and why. And we'll get into that deeper as it goes. In today's society, language is being misused as a tactical countermeasure to common sense, logic, and intuitional discernment. The parasitic elite of the Illuminati have deployed it as a self-locking mechanism of containment to trap the unsuspecting mass mind within the descriptive parameters of the what, while at the same time de-emphasizing the how and the why as valid perspectives for consideration. What? Well, I'm gay. I prefer men and women. How? I don't know how. Or care. I've always been this way. Why? I was born this way. I don't know. I've always had an attraction towards men or women. In the overall scheme of things, semantically, all answers to personal questions of sexual orientation appear to automatically dovetail into the what. Because all of what you ask in the bottom always comes up, I'm gay. And I prefer men and women. They don't ask you, why do you do that? It's contrary. Well, it's because I was born that way. And there is a society and a medium for you to come in and express it and enjoy it and be who you are. Well, you've come out of the parameters of that little circle that you were in, and now you're invading my space. As consciousness qualifies language, so too does language quantify consciousness. When consciousness becomes locked into its own concepts of reality, it gets trapped in descriptions of the what, preventing access to the how and the why. Now, I'm saying all this because when you take this home and you study it, after we have gone through the whole presentation, and you go back again, then everything that is happening, everything you're reading and rereading will start to make more sense. As Emilios Borantinos writes in his essay, Consciousness and the Sneer of Civilization, quote, words and symbols become transparent to what they fail to denote. That's deep. That line is heavy. Once you understand how to get into the why and the how, then words become transparent and you know what they're not describing. Check that. Once you can become a wordsmith, a wordologist, and you're focused into the understanding of how and why things come about, then when somebody throws something at you and you use that lens and there's something missing, you know immediately, well, I'm about to fill that spot that most people haven't been considering. They point to the quantum vacuum of meaning. That means there's a vacuum of meaning whenever your words, whenever you can see inside of words, and whatever they're not describing to you, or whatever is not being described by them, you can feel that there's a vacuum of meaning missing from inside of that. And that's what we want to do. Find the vacuum of meaning inside of all this rush of gay and lesbianism and, desexualization, and no more should they even have in the lexicon of society the word man, woman, husband, wife, uncle, aunt, son, daughter. These words in the next 20 years are supposed to be taken out of the lexicon of society. That ontological experience of wholeness underpinning the true comprehension of every individual part or relationship one becomes aware of. So he's letting you know that words, as they are being explained to you, if you know no better, those words will have their full meaning based on the explanation given to you. But if you know better and you understand the subtext of what is being said to you, then you will always know what is not being said. Thus, when dealing with the mutation of gender and the behavioral side effects, scientific facts become what we see, not what must be intuitively and instinctively discerned. But understanding science does not entail a science of understanding. Let me say that again. Understanding science does not entail a science of understanding. The scientists of today still think they can explain reality simply by describing it accurately. But what they describe, they cannot define. See, they have been describing what it's like to be gay to you. And then they've been giving you gay people that has been telling you we're human like you. Agreed. We just have a whole other way of looking at love. Agreed. We have sex with the same sex. You're just describing it. What makes you like that? Why are you doing something contrary to cosmic law? Beloved brothers and sisters, it doesn't matter what language is spoken. The facts about any given phenomenon can be recognized linguistically as the same by everyone. It doesn't matter what language you speak. If you speak the language and you explain those words and you know what you're describing and defining, I don't care if you're speaking Yiddish, Russian, Swahili, whatever, you get the meaning of it. What differs is the assessment of what you have been given and how you have taken those words and applied it as meaning to you. It's about placing the same information into a metaphysical system of relationships, one with the other, to give them an enhanced framework from which to view the subtle meanings behind them. So understand that when we speak about things, you know that they've been hating me because I teach metaphysics, and that's supposed to make you all stupid. Y'all don't want to go out there and tear down government and go out there and change the world and nothing. They don't understand that you got to first change you before you can change any damn thing outside of you. So they say that you are being put to sleep by what I say. That everything I do is just fancy metaphysical mumbo jumbo. Have I said anything mumbo jumbo to you so far? Okay, well tell me, because then I'll have to put away my, and whatever little, what it is, all the mumbo jumbo. I got to put it away because I got to watch because they're going to be looking at this and saying all the things that they've been saying about me, that I'm somehow misleading you down a garden path. Oh, you're going to read that. In fact, truth has little to do with the exactitude by which words are used to detail facts that recall a phenomenon. That is, when describing the what. It is not a question of just seeing what is there. It is a question of discovering the identity of what is there behind the effectual facade, and doing so within the given framework of the expressed phenomena under investigation or under examination. This is college level. This is super university, PhD, beyond no. This is high temple reasoning from your ancient Kushite Kemetic peoples. We're not trying to fit inside of any university or religious mold. We are above that. If we're about strategizing for a political meeting so that we can go and get laws passed in Congress, yeah. Then they would say, yes, I'm talking mumbo jumbo because it doesn't fit the venue. It's not the genre. But we are not there. Our thinking, our actions, the way we interface with one another after we leave out of here, that's going to be the everlasting, the more lasting effect on the society, on the world, than if I start picking up a gun trying to take over anything. That's temporary. The one who liberates you today becomes the despot tomorrow. Understand, our liberation must start here. It can't be constantly emotionally driven, because those who are in power emotionally drive you to change for them, not for you, because you end up in the same position as the person who was ruling you before them. It is said that seeing is believing, but most important of all is what you believe you see and why you believe it. When examining the cosmic principle of gender from a balanced perspective, consciousness must not only engage and observe its objectified biological expressions as male or female body templates, but must also sense the intangible variables that operate behind, between, and beyond these variables. When this is done, the seeker feels an imperceptible, non-objectifiable whole underlying the experience, just as a physicist perceives the quantum vacuum existing as a presence around the atomic particles he observes under an electron microscope. He knows that there's something holding that spinning phenomenon together. He don't know what it is, but he knows it's there. And that is how we operate. We can't tangibly put our hands on anything right now when we try to explain, hey, there's something wrong with that. Well, no, there's nothing wrong with it. I can express myself. There's just something that's not correct about it. I'm not blaming you, but there's something I need to investigate on that. And this is what I did. Unfortunately, a blanket of self-locking consciousness has been thrown over the perception of the masses regarding gender. Mind control has forced the general population to study effects without contemplating their causal origins, and to fragment objective and subjective behaviorisms without understanding the framework in which they are embedded. Where our ancestors once extrapolated meaning by studying the fragment in light of the whole, we now only consider the whole in light of the little fragment. Everything about our perception has twisted and changed. We were whole-thinking peoples. We saw the universe first, and then placed whatever it is we perceived from that experience into the fragment. And therefore, there was an automatic synchronicity, a synergism that was there automatically by our relationship, our consciousness relationship from the whole to the fragment. not from the fragment, and think you're going to find the whole inside the fragment. That's how Western minds think. However, meaning does not simply imply definable content. It implies indefinable being within the heart of definable content. That is the source, the essence of man's divinity, the ability to discern the imperceptible mechanisms of consciousness as it is expressed and harmonized through the biospiritual dynamics of archetypal principles. Principles like the arcane hermetic law of gender. Know that there is an order to the universe. And what we call the hermetic principle, of course, for us as Kemites, Kushite Kemites, the law of Jehudi. The hermetic principles of existence are as follows. Accordingly, the universe is mind. The universe is a negative, what is that? Electron. There's electron, proton, neutron. And in that movement, it condenses itself into variables of the whole theme. From mind proceeds mentalism. Mentalism is that everything that moves, that has its presence in tangible, sensual reality, is a byproduct of mind. From that, we seek correspondence, the principle of vibration, the principle of polarity, the principle of rhythm, the principle of cause and effect, and this is the deepest part. They put it down at the beginning of all times to let you know that one of the basic and most profound laws in the universe is the principle of gender, that electricity and magnetism, yin, yang, all come down to be male and female, man and woman. Now, for all of you who think that homosexuality and hermaphroditism is our return to our essential selves, you are missing the science in between that to address that issue to people who come to you that way. Overstand and understand. In the realm of unity, duality is intrinsic. You can't operate in twos in the realm of unity. When you want to operate on the realm of matter, unity becomes duality. And the interaction between the dual polarities is unity on the realm of materialism. So if you want to deal with unity and you took a body to operate on the realm of materialism, to operate with your polar opposite, that is the practice of equilibrium and unity. Anytime the body that comes out as a template of masculine or feminine begins to take on the opposite polarity, it means that whatever integrous energies that is within that body template has failed or is degenerating, so that the scale that keeps it balanced is falling towards the center. So no longer are you at one end or the other to keep the equilibrium and the ma'at. Your end is tipping towards the center, which means you are out of balance. So everybody thinks that because somebody who is male is acting female, is somehow balanced in the divine. No. Or the opposite. Somebody who is female is yanging and maling, is somehow seeing her masculine side and therefore balanced. No. And I will debate, quote unquote, anyone to show me that that is the fact, because everyone knows, I don't think everybody really knows this, but two scientists went to Papua New Guinea to investigate what was known as a parthenogenic birth. because a hermaphrodite woman, or a group of hermaphrodite women, had given birth to children without men. So they're saying, well, who are these women who are giving this virgin birth? These Russians rushed down to Papua New Guinea, and they were taken into the tribal council, and then they were taken into the outskirts of the village, there to meet the hermaphrodites. And they actually met what looked like men. Women who looked like men. They even had beards. The only way for parthenogenesis to happen inside of a body of a female is if she is part male as well, and it overrides. And that is an aberration. In fact, in the old days, if you read the book called the Mahabharata, that used to be a curse word, that you are the child of a fatherless wife, or you are a fatherless child. I think that's how you swear, you rank it on somebody. Because parthenogenesis was not the way you are supposed to have been born. This thing about Jesus, I'm scared to see what Mary looked like. In today's world, the social engineers of the parasitic elite have entrained our attention with reality as objectified language and symbol. We are conditioned to vicariously sense the power emanating from just the given words and symbols, and as a result, we fail to experience the whole intelligence that went into inspiring and formulating the definition itself. In the exercise of hyperdimensional perception, attention is focused on objects in an inclusive manner, where the seeker senses the indefinable power of the whole working through the representative symbol or design, all without confusing what emanates from them with what infrastructurally informs them from within. So we have to see that there is another part to the equation, no matter what is being shown on the surface, no matter what they're trying to explain what it is or to make you believe it is. You have to go back to where it is that energy is emanating from, and try to understand why that energy has been twisted, so that now we are seeing something different coming from the design. In other words, through the metaphysical lens of perception, we are made aware of both the intelligent life force underlying the universe, as well as its symbolic expression appearing on the surface as conscious life, reconnecting what was split apart when the illusion of time and the locality of space erupted into temporal existence. Now, from this point forward, we will investigate the mechanisms of biopsychic mutation. Biopsychic mutation affecting not only the behavioral idiosyncrasies of feminism and homosexuality, but also the behavioral idiosyncrasies of what I have come to define as reconstructed heterosexuality. Know this, beloved. Corporeal humanity, at its most fundamental state of organic expression, is a peer bonding species. I don't care what they tell you on Logo, on We Channel, on Oxygen, or on any of the other channels that are professing to change the gender dynamics of our people. We are not homosexual, asexual, or hermaphrodite species. Through the primordial interplay of the cosmic yin and yang forces of creation, we instinctively seek the other half of ourselves in the opposite sex to engender completeness, as well as to find meaning and satisfaction through our heterosexual roles as husbands, wives, fathers, and mothers. Now, this is not PC, because you're told that anybody could be a mother and father, even to women. And that anybody can be a mother and father, even to men. Yes, you can parent children, but you're not a mother and a father. And parenting denotes mother and father to give an equal or Ma'atian balance to the perspectives of the child that you are raising. This is necessary, very necessary. These are the quintessential aspects of the yin and yang polarities representing the ineffable all as expressed through the holographic matrix of the human form. Therefore, at the quintessential levels of cosmic expression and experience, sex and sexual cravings represent the active resonance of polarity emanated by the ineffable all, calling for the union of yin and yang opposites to engender equilibrium, continuance, completion, and contentment. When defining the term polarity, it is assumed that we are referring to the qualitative dynamics of electricity and magnetism, the fundamental expressions of yin and yang, or masculine and feminine forces inherent within nature. Now, yin, yang, electricity, and magnetism each have qualities or personalities inherent into their expression, where each functions within the representative designs best suited to fulfill their respective purposes on the material planes of existence. Know that there are qualities and personalities inherent to their expressions. So the quality of yin and the quality of yang have specific inherent qualities in them that make them what they are. Follow me. In other words, the yang forces of nature are actively expressed through the electrical polarity, which in turn is biologically manifested and represented as the masculine principle of the gender equation called man. The yin forces of nature are passively expressed through the magnetic polarity, which in turn is biologically manifested and expressed as the feminine principle of the gender equation called man. Now, what does man mean? Mother, father, child. M for mem, alf, A for alf, N for nun, or the fish, or that which proceeds from the two. That's Kabbalistic. Ladies and gentlemen, Brother Bobby Hemming. Today, the practitioners and proponents of faggotry and dykery, I made that up. Y'all put that in your lexicon. Want the world, particularly the world's children, to believe that there are no differences between the masculine and the feminine. They want the world to accept the illogic and the insane as a natural fact. Feminists promote their vitriolic rhetoric through the mega media machinery of Hollywood, the deducation system, and political and social forums. That masculinity, femininity, and family are merely social inventions of an oppressive patriarchy that have no basis in cosmic law or biology. We are all, in essence, biochemical drones, and the presence of genitalia denoting sex or sex-gender differences are only curious accidents of nature. These are paraphrased from actual words given by feminists in the 70s. A woman named Shulamith Firestone said that we have outgrown nature. And in her book, she said it's time we got rid of it. The dialect of sex, it's time for us to get rid of nature because it imprisons women. Oh, wait a minute. Nature imprisons women. It makes her have to have babies. It makes her have to take care of children. It is causing the differences become gender differences, which are nothing more than ideological differences that are made up in the mind of men. This is the women that led and whose sisters still follow. just an accident, people. It's an accident that you're a male, and it's an accident that you're a female. And the fact that you're a female doesn't mean that you can't be a male and do male things. Come out of the home, sisters. You don't need to be taking care of your children anymore. In fact, in the book, Firestone says there may be more creative ways for us to have children. Oh, you all don't read what feminism is founded on, have you?
No.
No, most of us don't. We just want our rights. No differences. Can you just think about that? You see, I had to put it up there to show you. No differences. They want to mold society. This is foundation. This is fundamental. And they want to tell you to suppress that and don't take that into consideration when you make laws. When you put societies together, make sure that this has nothing to do with it. Everybody is a drone, and you will work in the machinery of capitalism and communism and whatever goddamn isms they put up there to make you believe that working as a slave has got you free. But we're going to get even deeper. Feminism, psychotic philosophy, beloved brothers and sisters, bears the imperceptible underlying mentality of a cult. Because only cult would come up to you and tell you, listen, I got this new ideology. There ain't no differences between men and women. And y'all join, the penis and the vagina no longer count. You all are asexual drones in the eyes of God. And you will be given instructions on how to be in this new cult. The cult now says, hey, we found a way that you men don't even have to be men anymore. We don't need your sperm. We'll just take it from women. In light of the twisted pretzel logic surrounding the gay and lesbian propaganda being foisted upon planetary psyche today for the purpose of psychospiritually desensitizing our natural instinctive aversion to behavioral sexual deviancies, let's take a moment to logically examine one of the primary explanations promoted in defense of homosexuality and lesbianism. Namely, I was born gay, so how could what I am or what I do be biologically or morally wrong? It's inborn. It's not a conscious choice. It's genetic. These are the arguments that gay people use. And I am in concordance. Why am I in concordance? Because if you understand what we're getting ready to understand in this minute and as we go on, that the society 75 years ago said we need to crop the population. How do we crop the population? Well, we can give birth control. That slowed it a little. The best way to do it is to completely degenderize the society. Destroy sex. Sex that is the basic creative aspect of the universe. Make sure that you take a pill for sex itself. How do we do that? Well, we have to find out what way do we destabilize the endocrine system in such a way that a man does not come out as a man in the womb and a woman does not come out as a woman from the womb. We must now take the water, take the air, take the food, destroy what is balanced so that we can imbalance the population to the point where we will create terminal species, terminal humans. Think about that. Terminal humans. And again, all of my gay and lesbian friends out there, I ain't mad at you. This ain't about hate. It's about digging in to what is correct and what is incorrect and what it is that has been manipulated to seem as if it's correct. Now, putting aside the reflexive emotions, fears, and self-righteous indignation usually exhibited by those supporting the gay and lesbian lifestyles as normal or inherently natural, let us logically examine this basic phrase, I was born this way. Let's put what these words really mean into context from a scientific perspective. This notion of heredity, or what is known as, or what I've called, congenital homosexuality. Now, overstand, for the sake of argument, let's focus primarily on what could be the congenital origins of homosexuality, since genetic heredity as a cause may be more difficult to triangulate, given that the vast majority of the time, two heterosexual parents are likely to give birth to a homosexual child. So, first, a definition of the word congenital. Existing at birth, but not hereditary. Acquiring or acquired during development in the uterus and not through heredity, constituting an essential characteristic. So, we see that the word congenital does not necessarily mean hereditary. Something happened after the sperm and the egg got together. Something happened that when the sperm reached the egg and the egg began to multiply, something in the female system, something that she was given, something that she was exposed to, creates congenital conditions. Now, remember, they're telling you that they are born this way. Next, let's take the word relative to congenital and call congenital anomaly. A physiological or structural abnormality that develops before birth. Next, from the National Library of Medicine, medical subject hearings, we read, quote, a congenital disorder, pay attention, or malformation is a birth defect. A congenital disorder or malformation is a birth defect. It is a result of genetic abnormalities, malfunction of the intrauterine uterus environment, errors in morphogenesis. Something happened while the baby was forming to shut down specific things or specific avenues that the nervous system would take, that the cellular lines would take in order to create a complete human being. A chromosomal abnormality, or a complex mix of unknown factors. The outcome of the disorder will further depend on complex interactions, listen, between the prenatal deficit and the postnatal environment. So even if the defect comes out outside of that, will then give it its materials and circumstances and necessities that it has as a deficit. But remember, when you want to dysfunction humanity, when you want to dysfunction a specific aspect of humanity, you don't want that humanity to know that that is a dysfunction. You want to support humanity that is actually a terminal form of humanity. You want to support that because your agenda is to crop the population of over 2.5 to 3 billion people. See, you all can't encompass that. These people sit around in desks that are wider than this room to plan your future, to find out what they're going to do with you. How do we get rid of this amount of people? And I say to you, and I warn you, that by this September and October, they are coming after your children with that vaccination for the flu. That's another way to actually begin, especially girls, to start causing the destruction or the inability of you to hold a child. They did it with the tetanus vaccinations over in Singapore, where women of a specific generation from 18 to 26 could not hold their babies because of the vaccination. Now listen carefully. It is a birth defect. Keep those two words in mind. Birth defect, congenital disorder or malformation, is a birth defect. It is a result of genetic abnormalities. Now, the outcome of the disorder will further depend on complex interactions between prenatal deficit and postnatal environment. That's another important thing to remember. Congenital disorders vary widely in causation and abnormalities. In other words, there are thousands of different congenital abnormalities. But you would never hear of gay and lesbian being placed in that category because they're too politically tapped in. You will never hear it used in this framework. Now, given the facts stated above, revisiting the seemingly innocuous phrase, "I was born this way," takes on a more definitive, revealing, and profoundly meaningful perspective. Again, for the sake of argument, let us temporarily concede that homosexuality is something you are born with. If this is the case, the $64 million question then becomes, if nature designs an archetypal organism with inherent and pronounced specifications, in order that these specifications perform a particular function, said function and designed to fulfill a specific purpose, what then must be assumed if said design specifications do not function to inevitably fulfill its ultimate purpose? I'm going to do it again. People, follow me. This is very important. This is college level shit that they ain't going to let you hear. If nature, and we're talking about omniscient intelligence, we're talking about something you can't comprehend. You only think you know. And you ever had, you may too young out there, a white man got a God complex. You remember that? Yeah. Well, that's what we're talking about. And for you to push this nonsense on people who are balanced within the Ma'atian principle to tell us that somehow we ought to incorporate this birth defect. I still love my child if it's got a birth defect, but I'm not going to act like I want to be part of that defect. I'm supposed to raise that person, help and care for that person, not to politically engender that so that my child, who I want to raise in Ma'atian principles, is supposed to go out and experiment in it. How do you experiment at doing the things that come from a birth defect? Listen carefully. If nature designs an archetypal organism with inherent and pronounced specifications, in order that these specifications perform a particular function. Check me! Said function and design to fulfill a specific purpose. What then must be assumed if said designed specifications do not function to inevitably fulfill its ultimate purpose? Put another way, if design, listen to this quote I gave y'all, if design denotes function, and function must ultimately follow and fulfill the purpose of the design, what then must also be assumed when the mind of said organism operates contrary to the ultimate intention of the design that it houses? A whole new way of looking at gay, huh? See, the answer is simple. A mutation in organomechanics leading to a mental malfunction of the organism. Understand that we are dealing with design. And I don't care who you think you are, how close you think you are to God, because you are a preacher or imam or some whatever. I don't care if you're a government agent. I don't care who you are, who you think you know God. If you study design, it will tell you its function. So design denotes function. But what could possibly cause a mutation in organomechanics, leading to the mental malfunction of an organism? Answer: endocrine disruptors. Endocrine disruptors. Y'all get to know that phrase. Because every damn thing in this society is an endocrine disruptor. And if you can still keep your feelings for a man as a woman, and if you can still keep your feelings for a woman as a man, then you got a great chance of keeping your sanity. Because when they dysfunction you as a man and they dysfunction you as a woman, they take away the equilibrium that the society needs in thinking, in actions, in forwarding the society in Ma'atian principles. Know that when they take away your gender principles, which is supposed to, if you notice, the first principle was mentalism. The last principle is gender. Once they take away the gender, which is supposed to be how mentalism anchors in the material world. What are endocrine disruptors? Listen carefully. Nuclear receptors regulate critical cellular processes such as cell growth and differentiation, metabolic processes, reproduction, and development. Nuclear hormone receptors function as ligand-activated transcription or copying factors, thus providing a direct link between signal molecules that control these processes and transcriptional responses. A ligand is a molecule that affects the hormone receptor's behavior. When you screw with that, there's no receptor, or you can give it a signal that does not belong to it, thus dysfunctioning the whole organism. Endocrine disrupting agents acting through nuclear receptors are directly involved in a wide range of pathological anomalies such as tumor development, breast and testicular cancers, gender ambiguity, metabolic disease and obesity, and coronary heart problems. Endocrine disruptors are chemicals that interfere with the normal function of hormones and the way hormones control growth, metabolism, and body functions. There are different ways that chemicals can interfere with or disrupt hormones, and there are different kinds of chemicals that disrupt. There are more than 70,000 chemicals right now circulating in commerce, few of which have been tested for carcinogenicity, much less their capacity to disrupt endocrine systems. Women's exposure, listen carefully, women's exposure to environmental contaminants that mimic the activity of human sex hormones during prenatal development can affect the masculinity and femininity of their offspring. David E. Sandberg, PhD, Buffalo Associate Professor of Psychiatry and Pediatrics. It's getting better. Gender-bending chemicals mimicking the female hormone estrogen can disrupt the development of baby boys. Suggests the first evidence linking certain chemicals in everyday plastics to effects in humans. The chemicals implicated are phthalates, which make plastics more pliable in many cosmetics, toys, baby feeding bottles, and paints, and can leak into water and food. All previous studies suggesting these chemicals blunt the influence of male hormones, testosterone, on healthy development of males have been in animals. Quote, this research highlights the need for tougher controls of gender-bending chemicals, says Wynn Lyons, toxic advisor to the WWF and K. That ain't the Wrestling Association. It's the World Wildlife Fund. Otherwise, listen carefully, wildlife and baby boys will be the losers. Can we say that again? Wildlife and baby boys will be the losers. See, I don't hate gay people. I know what the parasitic elite is doing to create them. Endocrine disruptors at higher exposures, will cause boys to suffer from testicular dysgenesis syndrome, a human collection of more serious abnormalities which corresponds with phthalate syndrome. In other words, the baby's testicles do not form or they don't drop. They stay up mimicking ovaries. This is real, peeps. The problem is we don't take the time to sit down and with reason and logic see that these birth defects are essentially becoming politically correct in our society. We are mimicking the actions and we are becoming more condoning of the extroverted reactions or actions of people with birth defects. Listen carefully. If you see this, you're very likely to see every other aspect of masculinization changing too. Did you hear that? If you see that boys are beginning to be born like this, or if you see situations beginning to change in any way with gender, they're saying to you, you are going to see other aspects of masculinization changing too. So what else can possibly happen? This could include behavioral changes like seen in animals, including an aversion to rough and tumble play and a reduction in aggressiveness. Now hold on. Hold on. When you want to take over a society, wouldn't you want a passive male? No, I'm saying to you, if you want to snatch somebody's home and you're about to attack, who do you attack first or who do you worry about first? You worry about the male. You know there's an ice whooping coming. And if they got a strong society of males, ain't no way you're going to attack them. So what do? Well, the first thing you do, you have to attack the direct authority of the male. You have to destroy him. And what do? You start a campaign to turn the one person that you would never have believed could have been turned into an army of enemies against you. Your woman. Now I see that not too many people is clapping. The sisters are saying, oh, well, you know, I ain't no enemy to my man. You need to check your actions that you've become comfortable with in this society today. A lot of sisters have made it so that they have now imprisoned men in their own homes in such a way that they can't rule in their own homes. And even if they're just men, they can't rule in their own homes. The man is the head of the house. I don't give a flying rat's ass two shits of a fuck what you think.
Well, all right.
Correct.
And all the women who think that's not the way it is, I'm sorry to say that. And if you gave up on that and you went to the other side, this is why we ain't going no goddamn where. Because you are a support system. You don't lead the way in a damn thing. And that Oprah?
Speak on it, speak on it.
She has been the bane of our society. Or y'all love her because she look good. She definitely has all it takes. She don't give a rat's ass. You ever see her without them damn makeup? It's like a fish out of water. Understand that we have been attacked, and it has been a very, you definitely have to give it to the enemy. The enemy used the art of war by dysfunctioning psychologically our trust in men. Women distrust men now more than ever. There is a 90% distrust. They did a polling. Women do not trust men because that's how they've been conditioned to feel. Women are consensus makers and consensus takers. Women are communal, so they will go with what is next comfortable and makes them comfortable. Now, it's hard to say that, hard to feel it, hard to actually engender it, but the reality is that until women understand that now that they shifted the burden of rulership over to you in your house, that if you follow through with that agenda, number one, you're going to be a very bitter woman. Because the thing is, if you feel that you have to work, matter of fact, most women who think that they're free now, they say they're working harder than ever. The idea is they thought that, you know, once I get married or what do you call it, I won't be working so hard. Now they're working harder than ever. The problem is the society has reinforced that. It's not just them. Remember, they're order followers. They're not order givers. They're problem staters, not problem solvers. Women state problems. They don't solve them. I got a problem. I call this up. That's why there's so many goddamn workshops. So many goddamn people to go and see and talk to. Because women now rule. The society and the commerce was run on women. If you were to take away money from women, the whole goddamn system would crash. Because men don't spend like women. They have to spend for children. They spend for the house. And goddamn it, if they have any residual money, they gotta have the shoes. The problem is, again, women are problem staters. Men solve problems. If you take away the ability of a man to solve problems, you make him redundant. He is no longer necessary. And then he does not, what does he do? If he cannot solve your problems, if he cannot do, because a man is what he does, not what he sits around and talks about. Women sit around and talk. Men do. That's why we don't talk so much. And if you're trying to get him to constantly talk, and you're pissed because he doesn't, leave him alone. He'll come around and talk. I know it sounds crazy because essentially there's some men who like to talk. But then if they're not talking about what you want to talk about, then they're not really talking, are they? The problem is we are different. There are differences in us. And they want to lump us together and tell us we're the same. And when they put that new rule into the game, they caused us to come at each other's throats. I've never been at war with the queen. Why would I want to be at war with my woman, the one who has my children? Why would I be at war with her unless I'm at war up here? And there's some sick brothers out there who are sick. Any man who wants to hit or beat on his woman, he's sick. He's already gone up here. That man needs help. And back in the days, the society, the community men would have stepped to his ass. Because then that begins to reverberate down into the community. But hell, you don't run the streets no more, the cops do. And your children, who you didn't take care of, run the streets now. I know it's cyclic, it's madness, but it's all gender. Listen carefully, in mammalian species, okay, the following effects, which are discussed in more detail below, have been noted. In rodents, reduced sperm, reduced testes weight, and reduction in reproduction. In otters, and or in minks, reduced bacillum or baculum, penile bone length, smaller testes and impaired reproduction. In seals or in sea lions, impaired reproduction, including implantation failure, sterility, abortion, premature pupping. In cetaceans, reduced testosterone levels, impaired reproduction and hermaphrodite organs. In polar bears, intersex features and deformed genitals, reduced testes and baculum length, reduced testosterone levels in adult males, and reduced cub survival. In black bears, undescended testicles, familiar? In the Florida panther, undescended testicles, altered hormone levels, abnormal sperm, and low sperm density. In deer, antler deformities, undescended testicles, and testicular abnormalities, including cells predictive of testicular cancer. In eland or in antelope, abnormal testes, including impaired spermatogenesis. What we're saying there is that if you are not totally in your gender vortex, and you are in a holding pattern in that gender vortex, these are the things that can happen. Abnormalities, birth defects. So to say that someone who is a byproduct of that is somehow normal or natural is to get me to deform my thinking. In other words, I must become mentally deformed if I can buy into that. My love doesn't change, but my perspective of my love is not going to be changed. There are things that I am going to create as barriers to my behavior and acceptance of behavior. In the UK, it is a matter of some concern that 2 nationwide surveys in 2003, which assessed the effluent from 43 sewer treatment works on 2 separate occasions using the YAS. Something sound familiar? Do you see YAS? What was YAS? Yeast androgen assay have revealed that 77% of samples had anti-androgenic activity of 50 micrograms per liter flutamide equivalent or more. Flutamide is an anti-androgenic. Flutamide is an anti-androgenic. Androgen means man, masculine. Now they know all of this shit. And why is it all in everything that you're eating, drinking? Pharmaceutical compound that has been used as a comparative measure of anti-androgenic activity. Anti-androgenic pollutants have the potential to demasculinize males and affect their ability to reproduce. As of November 2008, the chemicals responsible for the anti-androgenic activity in the effluents had not yet been identified. In addition to contaminants with anti-androgenic effects,